Well, hey YouTube, it is Monday the 16th of August, and just wanted to show you here, just wrapped up doing some Seal, the initial rust conversion coating on the leaf springs, all four sides, two sides, top, bottom, rear differential cover, the rear lower shock brackets, and the transmission guard. And transmission guard is still curing, so it's looking a little orangey, kind of converting to black. As you can see, that was the last thing I coated. And then everything's going to need to cure for about 24 hours, and then I'll come back and put the zero rust paint on it. The frame is completely done and dried and sealed. 2 coats Seal, just make sure I got everything, and then 2 coats of zero rust, top, bottom, both sides. And I showed you that in the video from yesterday, previous video. Got the rear differential completely dismantled and cleaned. Got all the bearings out. I would touch it and flip it over and show you the inside, but right now I've got the initial coat of Seal on it. And then I'll come back later on this afternoon and put another coat on it. As you can see, I took the brake plates off and did all the brake plate flanges. And tomorrow UPS is supposed to be delivering the big batch of parts for me, so I've got my bearings and I've got everything to put this rear end back together. And then like I've said, I think pretty much every other video, the plan is get those leaf springs painted with the zero rust, get them on the frame, get the rear differential back together, get that mounted on the frame, and then I'll have some room to get into the front differential because there's quite a bit more parts on it. And you can see someone asked about this homemade stand. Basically it's just 2x4s and made it about 36 inches tall, so you're not bending over. And just basically a frame box, and then gives you a lot of room to get inside, outside, and all around the differentials when you work on it. I wish I could flip this over, but right now, like I said, it's curing. But I want to tell you, on the inside, the inner axle seals. So basically they're look like a washer with a rubber seal in it. They sit about right here, and they're pressed in, and they're right inside of the bearings for your drive gear, your pinion, or for your ring gear, okay? Now, the way I got them out, there's different ways, but the way that I got them out is that I used a piece of standard gas line tubing, 30-inch long, and then I took a 1/2 inch, and that's 1/2 inch size. I took a 1/2 inch cap or nipple cap, just screwed it on the end, and then you come in from the outside of the axle, and you get that nipple right in the center of that that seal, and then take your ball peen and just kind of tap on it and whack on it. It's a good idea, and I'll show you just here. Let's say the seal is sitting down on that lip, okay? It's a good idea to take a pick or some sort of a sharp pointy tool, metallic, and scrape the crud out in the groove as much as you can, and then spray your PB Blaster or your WD-40 down in there, and then scrape it out again, and then wipe it out. Let it sit for a couple of minutes before you go hammering out a seal or a bearing race. I find that it allows the bearing races and the seals to come out much easier that way, and less tendency to damage your mating surface of your differential housing where that race or that seal would be sitting. So just a little bit of advice that I've learned. And then I'm not sure if I talked about this, but I used a nipple remover tool to get that inside, I guess, bolt for the shackle out of the shackle bracket, that one right there. Took a big a lot of leverage breaker bar and a socket onto that nipple remover, stuck it in the hole, tap on it a couple of times, and it broke loose and kind of wiggled it back and forth. It was basically so rusted, it was almost, the rust was acting like a weld. As you can see all that rust on there, you can hardly see the grooves anymore. So the differential turned out really, really good. It took a lot of time to scrape off that, just the years of dirt and crud and the, that bed underlayment or underliner coating that someone had put on. And then the differential housing cover turned out really good, as I showed you back there. Let's see what else. I would also recommend, if you're doing dismantling of your differential, that you retain, when you take your bearing races off, there's going to be some shims. Okay, retain them. There's also going to be some on your pinion shaft. Okay, and make sure you retain them, because as I can see, this differential, I don't believe it's been worked on before. It could have had just the bearings replaced, but if you retain the shims, it'll at least give you a starting point on your side-to-side for your ring, and then your front and back preload and your alignment for your pinion shaft. When you go back to put this together with brand new bearings and races, you have to assemble it, test, check, spec, and then see how your preload is and your rotational torque. And if that's off, then you have to take it all apart and you have to put the shims back in that will adjust, whether tighter, looser, or what have you. And so just a little recommendation from a non-professional, just the way that I do things. Retain those original, because that'll give you a really good starting point. And hopefully, if anybody's gone into the rear end before, they have retained the original ones, and then they use that as a starting point, and it allows everything to get lined up a lot better. And it also allows the gears to retain their somewhat perfection, as you can see here. A little bit concerned about the front differential, as I think I've talked about multiple times, just because of when I drained the fluid out of the front, it was basically the consistency of thick burnt molasses. That concerns me, because that tells me that the bearings could be shot, and also all of the seals. So lastly, on the rear end, I'm going to need to obviously check the specs on the brake drums and get them wire brushed, and then I'll core seal and paint the outside. I don't do the inside because that's all sealed up, but I will clean them up with a wire brush. And then, the brake plate itself, I've got some replacement rebuild kit for the cylinders, the brake cylinders on each one. The springs look like they're in good conditions, and as well as the retainers look like they're in good condition. I'm not sure about the cams, but those will be disassembled once it's time to get to that. So with that, I will go ahead and wrap up this video, and I will pick up as soon as I get those leaf springs painted, and probably when they're back actually installed on the frame, and then when I get a couple of things assembled onto the differential, the rear differential, and just show you how I'm progressing there. So have a great rest of the afternoon, and we'll talk to you soon.